Hey guys, it's Matt Wenning at WenningStrength.com, and today we're going to go over some key bench press exercises that you can use with just a barbell. So I know for a lot of you guys that maybe want to train conjugate, you're like, well, I only have a bench press and a straight bar. I don't have all the fancy equipment that Matt has in his gym or Dave Tate has at Elite FTS or Louis used to have at Westside Barbell. And that's okay. Now there's going to be a strength level in which you're going to need more stuff. I talk about this all the time. You know, when you're trying to build a race car, for example, it's hard to do that with just a hammer and a screwdriver. But I'm going to show you all the different ways that we can use a barbell on the bench press to have variety in our training. But before we get to those exercises, please like, subscribe, and comment on some of your favorite exercises that you do with just a barbell. The first exercise that we want to utilize is bench pressing, right? So obviously the normal bench press is going to be our staple exercise for building the bench press with a straight bar, but there's a couple little variations that we can do that'll be ultra helpful. Now, leg drive in the bench press is roughly 10%. So when I was at my strongest bench press with my feet up, I was 50 pounds weaker. But is this good or bad? Well, for most people, they won't train themselves in a weaker position, which is a big mistake. So I find that training with your feet up can be helpful in developing stabilization. It can also be helpful in building pressing power without the advent of leg drive. When we put the leg drive back in, we should be a little bit stronger. So what does a bench press look like with no leg drive? Well, pretty interesting. We would lay back, we would set up just like we're gonna bench with our feet. Then we're gonna put them up and cross them, and then we're gonna bench press here. Now this is gonna make me, with decent weights, a little bit more unstable. So I really have to keep my lats locked, and I have to keep everything tighter in my upper body in order to control this weight. With my feet down, I have a little bit more of a lock into the, you can even see I can get in a better position. So training with a flat position with my feet up is a big help in building the bench press strength. The next one that you don't see very often is talk about is ratchet pressing. And I don't know that I invented it, but I definitely came up with the term ratchet pressing. So what is ratchet pressing? Well, it's pretty simple. You break the exercise down into 3 to 5 consecutive stops on the way up and stops on the way down. Ratchet pressing tends to take away some of the kinetic energy of the lift and turn the lift from concentric to isometric to concentric or eccentric to isometric. So basically what you're doing is you're changing contraction types throughout the range of motion. What does that look like? Well, let's take a look. So we'll take the bar out, we'll lock in, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, pretty simple, but very effective, because a lot of times in that 1 and 2 is mostly where most people are going to stick in the bench press. If you're used to stopping in that position and then having to squeeze through, it builds a lot of strength. Isometrics can be very important in your training, but you don't hear a lot of people talk about them. The Russians used to use isometrics quite extensively and would make them fairly strong, fairly quick. The problem is, though, they only work for so long. So you have to have a rotation of training and only put these in when it's time. That's when our apps come into handy and availability of knowing when to use ratchet training, which I consider functional isometrics with concentric or eccentric action. So ratchet pressing is another exercise that's huge in building your bench press with minimal stuff. The next exercise that you can use, and you don't need the fancy Wenning Strength bench or another one like Elite FTS to do it, is a pin press. Now, we can do this 2 different ways. We can do it from the top, we can do it from the bottom, depending on what you want to do and how much effective rotation you can have in your exercises. But the pin press is one of those exercises that I find ultra effective at training our mini-max. We've talked about this in other videos, but mini-maxes is the point in which you are the weakest, and that should get a lot of emphasis in your training. So I'll show you both ways. The first way is taking it out like a normal bench press, and then taking it down until it touches the pin, and then pressing. So this is creating a stopping point in your pressing and effectively kind of screwing up your timing. But there's another way we could do this. We could actually start from the bottom. So now the bar's already sitting in the pins. We roll it out to where we bench press, and we start right from the bottom. almost like an Anderson squat, but a press in this position from the bottom. And then we end at the bottom, roll it away, crawl out from under the bar. So you can use this in a normal power rack if you got the adjustment holes, but pin pressing either from the top or the bottom is crucial in your training because of training your mini max. So wherever you stick, try to train that exact position and work on struggling through that spot. This is going to make your bench press much, much weaker at first, but training it and then putting it back into full range of movements and then putting it back in and out and rotating it is going to make your bench press super strong in the exact area in which you need, which is your mini max. The last exercise we'll show in this series is the throat press. Now, you won't see me doing a lot of exercises that I feel will hurt or damage the shoulder long term. But the throat press is one of those exercises that I've never seen a shoulder injury with. One, because it limits the amount of weight you can use. And two, if you know how to do it correctly, it's mostly triceps. So what does a throat press look like? Well, you basically go down to your throat instead of going down to your chest, keeping the bar high, and you actually keep the elbows flared out. So it's mostly a bending and straightening of the elbow joint with minimal shoulder. Now, for a lot of you beginners, this may not be an exercise for you to do because you're probably going to shift over to shoulder pressure on this. If you feel it a lot in your front shoulders, don't do this exercise yet. You may not be prepared for it, but you should feel it in your triceps. So what should that look like? Take it out, and a lot of times I'll do it with a fairly narrow bench, or hand grip. One finger on the smooth, take it out and put it right over my neck, and then I take it down to my neck and press it. Down to my neck and press it. Now, my arms are so tight that this is as far as it'll go, even without the pins being high. But you can see this is a lot different than bench pressing. We're up here and we're using a lot of elbow straightening and extending and flexing to get this bar to move. So this exercise is probably one of my favorite to do on a rotation if I don't have very much equipment. I will do this exercise a ton if I'm traveling and I have access to a bench press, but I may not have access to my tricep machine or other specialized exercises that I could use to build my arms. I'll do throat presses to build up my arm strength if I have limited equipment.
Guys, you say, hey, baby, you and me's going on today. That's in the story. What's the name?
Lance.
Listen here, Lance. Lance.
Oh, okay, guys. A little flashback from Nam. But here's how we go. Now, you guys have seen some exercises that I use with only a barbell. So a lot of times this is a big deal if I'm traveling or I'm maybe in a friend's garage, gym, training, or I'm trying to just show you guys how to do stuff with minimal equipment. Now, when and where you rotate this stuff is insanely important to making sure that your pressing strength goes up. These aren't the only exercises that we use with a barbell. So if you need more assistance and guidance, the cheapest way to do it is to come on Top Tier Patreon or come to Train Heroic, where you can see video descriptions on how to do things and get some workouts that are laying with these exercises in place and what I feel is optimal. Or you can come on online coaching where we'll custom tailor it for your exact needs. Either way, you're a winner. But the point is these exercises will be a massive, effective help in order for you to get better. And I hope that this has broadened your horizons a little bit to not just training with a straight bar, straight bench all the time. That is the real trick, is to reducing the mileage while still getting stronger and not training so specific that we get these bumps and bruises and injuries that are just hard to recover from. So this is Matt Wenning at wenningstrength.com. Hope to see you guys on one of the apps. And if not, use this information to get yourself better.